Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Premier League show. I am joined by Barney. How are you, Barney?
I'm very good, thank you, Lewis. It's nice to be here, and you're a great host. And thank you to Harry for inviting me onto the channel.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant to have you on, and hopefully later on we will be joined by Billie T. But no, let's get straight into it. And the first game that was of match week two, we're going to be going over match week two, was Brighton versus Manchester United. So now, obviously, there was a bit of VAR controversy in this game as well with what happened with Joshua Zirkzee. Last minute goals. This game had everything, really. Barney, what was your overall thoughts about this game? Maybe going into this game, did you think Brighton would win it, or did you think Man United were going to go and win it?
Well, Man United, I think, will want to start off well. They're a big club. They want to sort of finish in around that top four position. But Brighton are really good at home, and I always think that I think they could be a dark horses this season. I think they'll finish close to Europe, and obviously, they scored a late winner. Brighton did, and you're always going to get VAR controversy in all games. Obviously, we'll touch on this later. We had a VAR incident in our game. So you
Yeah,
never know sometimes how they'll go. They'll sometimes go for the team or against the team. But they were well taking goals against Manchester United by Welbeck and Pedro. I thought Brighton were worthy winners, to be honest, and it's a big scalp. And I think Manchester United will probably look back on that as definitely a missed opportunity because they'll be thinking, no disrespect to Brighton, but Manchester United need to be going to clubs like Brighton and getting 3 points if they want to be challenging for those European spots.
yeah, indeed. Speaking about Manchester United, do you think this is for Eric Ten Hag? This is maybe his make it or break it season because fans were starting to get on his back at the end of last season, but he did win the FA Cup, which kind of saved his job, so to speak. But now this season, do you think if poor performances start to seep in again, do you think he might be looking at maybe looking at getting fired, getting sacked?
I think he'd be under pressure, no doubt. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, when we played in the first game, we put them under pressure. We had a good game against them, and on another day we could have taken a point, maybe three, if we'd taken our chances. So he'll look on that game against us as a get out of jail. They were lucky to win it. So in effect, it's come back and bitten them by conceding a last minute goal this time. So he's under pressure, yes. If I was a Manchester United fan, I'd be thinking, yeah, he needs to sort of up his game and to improve his pedigree a bit if he wants to be challenging for those places. It could be his last season. It's hard to say, really. I think he needs to win a trophy. What's your opinion?
I don't know because I think to be fair, he's come under fire a lot over because he spent a lot of money, but and the positions he's putting in Manchester United in the Premier League, they're not the best. But you have to look at it. He's won two trophies. He's won an FA Cup. He's won a Carabao Cup, and they're not nothing because you look at teams like Arsenal who are doing brilliant in the league in every season, but they've got
Yeah,
nothing to show for it at the end of it. So there's two ways to look at it for sure. But I
it's all
still
about
think,
trophies. Yeah,
yeah. And Billy has joined us. How are you, Billy?
Hey guys,
easy,
how's it
Billy,
going?
mate.
I'm very good,
Not
thank
too
you. How are
bad, mate.
you?
Nice to
Not
see
too
you.
bad. Thank
Yeah,
you for
sorry for
coming
the
on.
delay. Had a bit of internet trouble, but I'm back.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We were just talking about Manchester United and the Brighton game, as well as what do you think about? What was your overall thoughts about that game? Manchester United losing to Brighton.
Uh, yeah, crazy, really. I thought Man United definitely looked a little bit better than they did last season, but huge win for Brighton. Huge win. It wasn't something that I predicted to happen. Yeah, but again, they look really strong at the moment. Brighton, 2 wins from two, new manager. Yeah, massive win. What did you guys think?
After you, Lewis.
Oh no, we were just thinking that I think for Brighton, yeah, I think for Brighton this they generally could probably finish in the European spot. I know it's only early in the season and it's only been two games, but if you look how strong they are, beating a team like Manchester United, I think Conference League or Europa League, I think they got to be aiming for it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
completely agree.
I fully agree too. My
I
thoughts
think
would
it's
be
only Chelsea have spent more on them in Europe this summer. I think they've gone big on transfers. So yeah, they've
They
got, they've
have
got
as well.
a lot of ambition for sure.
Okay,
they
let's
certainly do.
move on to Crystal Palace versus West Ham United. This was a 2-0 win to West Ham in the end. And this was a bit of a shock to me, to be honest, because I'm for one thought after the end Palace had to last season under Glasner, I thought they'll be looking to really push on this season and hopefully finish fighting for Europe. But Barney, we'll kick it off with you. Are you surprised about Palace's poor start to the season and kind of the poor game they had against West Ham?
I'm surprised at the poor game they had against West Ham. I expected a better to start, but I'm more surprised actually the fact that they seem to be sort of selling players left, right, and centre. I mean, obviously they've got rid of Anderson to us, another player just gone off. They seem to be a club sort of in a bit of disarray at the moment. They don't know sort of which direction they're going in. Maybe that's a bit harsh. I don't know, but they don't seem to have a plan going forward. What's your opinion?
No, I was rather surprised about Crystal Palace, to be fair, in this game, because I generally thought that they would probably get a point or two, not a point or two, maybe even a win, because I still think Selhurst Park's a really hard place to go. And I was rather surprised about this game. I think West Ham just dominated the game, really. They really took it to them. And for a team like Palace at home, if they're going to progress under Glasner, I think they've really really got to show they've got a lot to prove this season. And
They'll look at it as a missed opportunity. Yeah.
we've also been joined by Callum. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, boys.
Hi, Callum.
Harry has summoned me from the darkness.
No, it's good to have you on. It's good to have you on.
Cheers, mate.
Well, Callum, we'll come straight to you and we'll throw you in the deep end a bit. Crystal Palace versus West Ham. Obviously, a 2-0 win for West Ham in the end. Were you surprised about Crystal Palace probably not picking up any points?
I was a little bit, to be fair, because they've done quite well this summer. They haven't actually lost as many players as I thought they would. And to be honest, looking at the signings that West Ham have made, they are pretty much a mismatch of God knows what, to be honest. So I wasn't expecting too much from West Ham, and I thought Palace may do well. But it turns out that the style that Glasner's playing with them just hasn't clicked this season. They weren't. I know it's only 2 games in, but something looks amiss. And to be honest, it looks like a squad devoid of ideas and no real contingency plan to it. It's either they hit them on the break and they get something through Eze or Mateta, or they've got nothing else going forward, to be honest. And it's a little bit embarrassing when Gahey's been made captain for the last 2 games and there's 4 failed bids from Newcastle, as been reported, and it kind of is probably just sitting there looking at it thinking, is this really what I want to stick around for? Will he kick up fuss before the end of the week, to be honest?
Yeah, Billy, we'll come to you. Do you think that it will take for the transfer window for Palace to kick on, considering they've got a lot of bids coming in for their players? Obviously, Joachim Andersen has left to Fulham. Mark Gahey has come in, or got been bids. Do you think it will take for that window to end and Glasner to have these full players before it starts to get better?
Yeah, I think so. I think they definitely need a couple more signings as well because they seem to be a lot worse off than they were. I know they've got signed a couple of players, haven't they? But they seem to be a lot worse off at the moment than last season. Obviously, Elise is pretty much irreplaceable. They're not going to be able to replace him. But you would expect them to do a bit more. And if they do lose Gahey before the end of the window, then I think they might really struggle. That's both their centre-backs gone. And it's really surprising for me because they were at the end of last season, they were one of the most informed teams in the league, a really good manager, a really good squad, but they seem to have regressed quite a lot, which you don't, obviously you never want to be regressing in the summer, especially first summer under a new manager. So yeah, I fear for them, to be honest. I think they could be in a bit of trouble unless they pull out a couple of signings because they just look like, so they've lost both the games so far. I know they won last night in the cup, didn't they? But yeah, you'd fear for them if they don't bring any more players in before the end of the window. But I'm sure they just want to get it closed and keep Gahey here. But I don't know whether that's actually going to happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Barney, we'll come to you and we'll talk about the West Ham aspect of this game as well. Do you think that West Ham are in for a good season? They've obviously made, a lot of people have been we're looking on about how many signings they made. They made loads of signings, a lot of them rather pretty good signings as well. So do you think this could be a good season for West Ham?
I think they've got a good balance across the squad. I think they've recruited very well. Someone will say maybe they bought too many. How can you sort of, pick a decent starting lineup every week based on the players they bought? But I think they've got a good manager. And I said to Harry last week, I think they're my outsiders for Europe. I think they'll finish there or thereabouts. I think they're well managed and they were better than Crystal Palace on the day. I think they took their chances. They were clinical and they'll be there or thereabouts. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I do think this is I don't like saying this as a Spurs fan, but I do think West Ham have done good business, and I'm pretty sure they can have actually a pretty good season. probably even fight. Callum's laughing, but do you think West Ham could have a good season, Callum?
Being a Spurs fan, I'll never think that West Ham will ever be anything more than a tin pot club that are paying £1 million a year for their stadium. But they've got some good options in there, but I don't particularly rate Lopetegui as a manager. I think it's more the manager, and then you've got a director of football who has come in, and you can see a lot of the signings, i.e. that club signing stuff that we had when Paratici was at Spurs with us as well. It's kind of that polar opposites. And the thing is, if Spurs had gone and signed Fulcrook, we'd have been going, why the hell have we wasted a load of money getting a a tree trunk like Loriente, and yet the West Ham fans are going to go it, and it's been praised as big business. There's no comparison sort of in it. I reckon West Ham could do all right, but it's so early to say. And I mean, was it that they lost their first game, weren't it, or drew 1-1,
They lost
something
to
like
Aston
that?
Villa.
Yeah, so I mean, and that was a piss poor Villa team, to be honest, on that first game of the season as well. So I mean, it's West Ham will either pull out miraculous results, they'll probably beat Spurs 8-2 on aggregate this season and lose to everyone else. You just know the way it'll go. But I don't ideally praise West Ham. And I know if my partner's dad is listening to this right now, that it was probably not. He's not going to cook me any dinner for God knows how long. Let's put it that way.
No, fair enough. I'm pretty sure it is annoying for us to say it as Spurs fans, but I just look on at their business, and they've done a lot more business than we have, Spurs as a club. And so it does make you think, where are they getting this money from, and how are they doing a lot more business than we are. But now let's move on to Fulham versus Leicester. I have 2-1 to Fulham in the end, and I've got to ask Barney first. Being the Fulham fan here, obviously Fulham ended up coming just short against Man United in game week 1. The game week 2, you bounced back. You had a dominant performance against Leicester, and how good was it to get your first 3 points of the season?
It was brilliant because I was at Craven Cottage, so I can talk a lot about the game. So be prepared for this. It was disappointing against Manchester United because having had so much of the play to walk away empty-handed, I felt, okay, is this how the season's going to go? Are people going to be saying, oh, they played well? Little Fulham played well, but, nothing to show for it. But it was totally different from start to finish, total domination, possession, second balls. We were finding the spaces. Our fullbacks were getting down the wings, getting crosses in continuously. Dharma Traore, fabulous assist for Emil Smith-Rowe. And then, obviously, Antonee Robinson, best left back in the league, scoring the assist for Alex Iwobi to score the winner. We have it in us. I think we've inverted to a 4-3-3. We seem to be playing much more sort of attacking intent this season. Emil Smith-Rowe has slotted in brilliantly. It's like he's always been there. I mean, he looks a steal. I mean, obviously, as Spurs fans, you don't want to sort of hear a former gunner be praised, but I'm being really impressed. And the only disappointment was we didn't actually win more comfortably. And it was a little bit of a kind of a weird thing that happened when Leicester sort of equalised. Originally, the official flagged it off, and I'm thinking, what's gone wrong here? And apparently, Leno, he thought was in the line of sight with Vardy, so he disallowed it, and then it went to VAR, and then we all know what VAR's like. The referee sort of went over to the pitch monitor, had a look, took about 3 or 4 minutes. We're thinking, are they going to get a goal? And 1-1 going into half time, but you think, will Leicester have a bit more belief going into the second half? 1-1. They didn't really show anything. I was quite surprised. I mean, no disrespect to Spurs, but we did what you didn't. We kept Jamie Vardy quiet. He didn't have a sniff. He didn't have a touch. So we just carried on the second half doing what we were doing, and the goal came. And it was a worthy 3 points, first win of the season. Happy days.
I'll stick with you for one more question because I want to ask you about your transfer business. You've been quite busy. Obviously, you've just signed Cuenca, Joachim Anderson from Palace. That's a great signing for you, and obviously Berger from Burnley. How good do you think these signings can be? And do you think they can push you on? Where do you think you might finish with these good additions?
Well, I watched them last night. Berger and Anderson are absolutely huge. They're towering players, really strong. Anderson obviously provided a terrific assist for Jay Stansfield, ironic, against his former club Birmingham, to score the second goal. Yeah. But it was a great win last night. I think if you'd put me on the spot now, Lewis, top 10. I generally think we're capable of it now. With the new players in, we look a unit. We really do.
Okay, so Callum, I'll come to you. Fulham to Leicester 1. Obviously, as I said, Fulham did what we couldn't, and they stuck 2 past Leicester. Should we be disappointed? As Spurs fans, should we be disappointed? And as well, how well do you think Fulham can do this season?
I think that Spurs we've all been kicking ourselves in the backside for about the last week and a half now. That it did feel like a loss where we should have been dominating that game and should have been more clinical. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm thinking I hate Monday night football, no matter what game it is, even if it is our first game of the season. It's just a turgid one to do. And King the King Power Stadium is just horrible to play at as well. So I mean, I'll never say anything good about our first game of the season. We didn't take our chances, so we probably did get punished for it. And of everyone, it's Jamie Vardy who's probably got a record of 8 or 9 goals in his history against us. So if you're going to mark someone, at least have the common sense to do it against him, even if he ain't got any legs anymore. But no, I think that Fulham gave Leicester a good game. I think it probably could have been more goals to Fulham, to be honest. And I hate to say it, I have to praise their business. And Barney, I love you dearly, but you know I do take the mickey a lot, mate, as well. So it's always going to be
It's
a
all
fun
right.
one. But no, I think that a cracking by getting Joachim Anderson, I thought you're never going to prize him away from Palace. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Saudi, something like that. And for you guys to get him for 30 million, so still, it's such a good buy. And I think now that Fulham over the last couple of years have got their head straight and they're not doing that frantic 100 million down the drain that they did a couple of years ago, they've actually progressed and keeping Silver and people like that and building the support network compared to what they had with Scott Parker before. It's hands down above it. And yeah, I'd say that Fulham could be an outside chance to push for probably top 8, 9, potentially even Conference League. But the only thing I see is a lot of the backup options in your squad are probably a bit mediocre within reason, I would maybe say.
You're not far off your opinion there. Yeah, I mean, we played 11 changes last night against Birmingham. And I wouldn't say that team would set heart pulses racing, but it's still quality. But it wouldn't be a team that I'd necessarily put out in the Premier League week in, week out.
Yeah, it's probably something where maybe you're buying the best of the Championship type players and all that. That's where it's the different level. And I can't really say it for Spurs, to be honest, because we probably bought 2 of the best players in the Championship last year in Odebear and Gray. But it's that sort of level where do Fulham sit with it? And I think first 11, first 14, 15, very good. Some decent youngsters like Stanfield and people like that who are coming in. But it's just, how can you guys go to the next level? But wins like this against Leicester, it don't matter if they've just got promoted. You won 2-1. Simple as that. You got the 3 points. You did what needed to be done at the end of the day.
Win's a win.
Indeed. Billy, we'll be coming to you. Do you agree with what's been said as well, that Fulham can maybe push for mid about 10th position or even push into fight European spots?
Yeah, I think so. I really, really rate the manager. I think he's an excellent manager, and I think they've done well to keep hold of him because he always seems to be getting linked every year. I know he got linked a lot with Saudi last summer. And I think they've made excellent signings. I think Smith Rowe is going to be a brilliant signing, as much as it pains me to say, as an ex-Arsenal player, but he looks really good. And I love Anthony Robertson as well. I got him in my fantasy football team, so that was a nice little assist at the weekend. But yeah, they're definitely a team that I like to watch, and I like Marco Silva because he's, he plays football in the right way. So I would not be surprised to see them in the top, pushing the top half and beyond this season for sure.
Indeed. Well, we stick with you, Billy, because I want to talk a little bit about Leicester as well. So obviously Leicester have got 1 point after 2 games. They might be having a points deduction as well. Are you fearing that Leicester could be nearing the drop this season?
Yeah. So when we did a season preview at the beginning of this window, beginning of the season, sorry, they're definitely one that I had earmarked to go down, and that was even before taking into consideration the points deduction, because obviously they lost their manager in summer. I don't think Cooper's a brilliant manager. I think he's all right, but I don't think he's probably got enough signings and transfer back in to stay up in this league. Obviously they signed Oliver Skip from us, and I hope he does really well there with Winks. But I just look at their team. Doesn't look like a Premier League quality team. Doesn't look like one that's capable of staying up. So I think out of the 3 promoted teams, I think they might even be the weakest, because I think Ipswich have got something about them. So yeah, I'll be very surprised to see them in the Premier League next year, to be honest, especially with the points deduction.
Indeed. And talking about Ipswich, they did end up losing 4-1 to Manchester City on Saturday. Not much of a surprise. Barney, I'll be coming to you. This wasn't a surprise at all, was it? But was it a surprise that Ipswich did take the lead?
It was a surprise, but then Ipswich, I think, being a newly promoted side, are going to approach every game in the same manner, just go for it. Really, I think a newly promoted side can't really sort of have that mentality that they're here to make up the numbers. I mean, we play them next, and we'll talk about that in a bit. What I think about that game, but Man City, I mean, we knock them out, don't we? They're on a different level. I mean, Haaland hat trick, he's unplayable on his day. It was inevitable it was going to happen. Ipswich obviously had, a good goal by Ipswich. Don't get me wrong. It was, not many teams go to Man City and take the lead. I'd be happy, but they're going to struggle to keep clean sheets this season. I think, with all due respect to them, they're going to concede a lot of goals this season. I'm not really convinced with their defence, and Man City's just took them apart, picked them off. I thought watching back the highlights, and they just looked a class above, just a different level. Haaland could easily break records again this season with his goals, I think.
Do you think that Ipswich are another team that are destined for the drop, or do you think they could actually just about survive this season?
Well, I said this to Harry, actually. I think they might have a surprise package. I think they might just survive. My predictions were Leicester, Forest, and Southampton. I think they could actually just scrape by, but it's a long season. I mean, we don't know. I mean, they might recruit again in January. I mean, they've been buying some players recently. It'll take a while to bed in. They will get points, don't get me wrong. They will get some results along the way. But do they have enough? Time will tell.
Indeed. Callum, well, we coming to you. So this wasn't a shock for Man City. Do you think Man City have got enough in the tank to do it 5 in a row, hopefully?
Yeah, they're definitely hard-on favourites, I think, to probably go all the way. And I mean, even if you've taken people like Alvarez out of their team, Oscar Bob being out injured, they're just freaks of nature. It's just the options that they have in their squad is just ridiculous. I mean, when they like losing Palmer last year, yeah, he had a quality season at Chelsea, but then when you think if he had stayed around City, probably wouldn't have made an impact. And yet they can just keep churning these players out. James McAtee this year seems to be the new favourite to sort of come in and do something. And they are just a class above. Even their bench options, you probably any of Spurs, Fulham, Arsenal. If you could get a City hand-me-down, as I would put it, you'd be laughing all the way to the bank and all that. If you could get someone that 9 out of 10 of their bench would walk into any top 6 club and all that. I mean, even backup keeper Ortega could probably go in and take most of the top 10 spaces. So yeah, I think that City have definitely got it well within themselves, unless they get serious injury concerns where they lose Foden, Silva, Haaland, De Bruyne all at one point. I think there's a good chance that they will go and do it, compared to someone like Ipswich that are just a hot mess, who I don't even know where the hell they got all their money from this summer, to be honest.
Yeah, very fair. Billy, I'll come to you. And if you look at the stats of this game, Ipswich only managed one shot, and it was their goal. Their one shot went in. Is that the sort of Man City domination that just kills off teams like that? That they only, because City, if you look at stats, they completely annihilated that Ipswich team.
Yeah, and I think they restrict most teams in the league to a couple of shots, bar maybe the top 6. They're very, very solid defensively, and they keep the ball better than anyone else possibly in the world. So I think that's always going to happen, and I don't think Ipswich are going to learn anything from this game. I don't think anyone would expect them to learn from this game. It'll be the next few, when they've got teams that are in the bottom half next season, not this season, that they'll want to try and pick up some points, but. Business as usual for Man City, and long may it continue, because I definitely want to be seeing them win the league this year, not for our North London rivals. So yeah, hopefully it continues all season.
Yeah, Barney, we'll be ending on you for this game. Do you think Man City have got enough to do 5 in the year to win the Premier League for 5 years in a row?
They got such squad depth, Lewis. I mean, I don't think anyone can touch them, to be honest. I think Haaland's going to get 20, 30 goals again. I think it's just a matter of just how many points they're going to win the title by. It's certainly going to be, I wouldn't say a one-horse race. I think Arsenal and Liverpool will run them close, but I just can't see them. I can't see them slipping up. Famous last words, but I think they've got too much quality.
Yeah, I certainly do hope they win the league, obviously, because I don't want Arsenal to be win the league, especially. But we'll move on to the next game, which was Southampton 0, Nottingham Forest 1. Not the most glamorous Premier League fixture of all time, but it was definitely quite an evenly matched game as well. So, Barney, we'll stay with you. Was this a shock that Forest took the win? I mean, a lot of people have tipped Forest to maybe go down this season, but they've got 4 points to start the season. Pretty respectable from them.
They got a good squad. When they came up with us, they spent a lot of money, and I thought they'd give it a good go, and they sort of stabilised there or thereabouts. It's one of those kind of teams I think both will finish sort of, definitely down there. So it's not the kind of game that's going to have loads of goals in it, I don't think. I think Forest are looking at it as a good win. Clinical clean sheet away from home, good start. I think those are the kind of games that Forest will need to get points from against teams around them if they want to stay up. And Southampton definitely will think the same. They need to be beating teams like Forest if they want to have aspirations of staying in the Premier League. So I think it'd be good win for Forest. I'll be pleased.
Certainly. Callum, I'll come to you. Is this Nottingham Forest team capable of staying up, do you think? Obviously, they've got our old manager, Nuno. They've got 4 points out of their first 2 games. They're doing what they need to be doing. Have they got enough to stay up, or do you think they still might be tipped for relegation?
It's going to be hard to say, to be honest. Somewhere like Nottingham, Forest did well, then they got their points deductions last year. They kept going, then they self-imploded, then they got back to themselves, then they imploded again. Then there was talk of Nuno wanting to go. So I think anything with their team, their manager, their chairman, they're just such a disorganized club. I honestly think that, yeah, they probably could survive, but I wouldn't. If I was a bookie, I'd definitely take a bet on saying that they could go down, to be honest, because they are such a unpredictable, hot mess as such. They've definitely got to be one of them that I don't think they're going to push top 10. Maybe they'll come 17th to 15th, something like that. But it's no disrespect to Forest fans because I know they've got a lot of history, but I just think that their owner and the way that they run their club, they just remind me of a lower ranked Chelsea. It doesn't seem to be any strategy there. And I don't think that I actually feel sorry for Nuno. I mean, he's an all right manager, but I just think he's a yes man. And that's the problem. That's why he's probably there over someone like Cooper. He just says yes and does what he's told to do, to be honest.
Yeah, Billy, we'll be coming to you now as we talk about Southampton. This is no disrespect to Southampton fans, but is it a statement that can be made that they're probably destined for relegation?
I hope not, because I like their manager. I like the way they play football, but you need to be picking up points, and you can't be losing these kind of games if you want to stay up. Forest at home, that's one of the ones that you'll be looking at to try and get at least a point. And it's when you start losing home games like this, you got to really, really worry as a fan of a team that just got promoted. So I think they'll look at this game as a bit of a worry. The alarm bells will definitely be ringing, but it's going to be a really tough job to stay up. But I think I do really like the manager and everything that he's done there. So fingers crossed for them. But if you're losing to Forest at home, you're going to struggle to stay up as a newly promoted side because chances are they get blown away by most of the top 6 teams, the big 6 teams, and then lose most of the top half teams as well. So this is the kind of one that they need to be at least be not losing. So yeah, I definitely think the alarm bells will be ringing for Southampton.
Indeed. So we'll be moving on to the next game, and well, it's going to put a smile on my face because it was Tottenham 4, Everton 0. Actually, probably Tottenham 4, Everton 0. So let's start off with a Spurs fan in Callum. Obviously, we drew 1-1 to Leicester before this, but we've come back 4-0, a comprehensive victory. It was just a brilliant all-round performance from Spurs, wasn't it? And how happy were you to see us put 4 past Everton?
I was over the moon, mate. I was very fortunate to get to go there for my first game of the season. So, I mean, it was hands down a brilliant performance. Yes, against a devoid Everton team of most, apart from some first team players and a bench of youth. But there was signs of us looking like a team that wants to play Ange ball. And it was a very attacking, forward-thinking attack, but it actually... a whole lineup, but it actually had the earmarks of what we've been saying, better defensive marking against set pieces, always trying to get on the front foot, pushing people back, pressing, and just going again and going again and going again. And we did everything that we did in the Leicester game, but we actually was clinical and effective and efficient from the front this time. And I mean, with no recognised front man as such, because I mean, I'll always say Son is a winger. He's not up front, and if we played a false nine, it would be Kulu for me. But he did so well there. Basuma getting a banger of a goal that you never know may end up in contender for the goal of the season at some point, and then Romero continuing as the best goal scoring defender in the Premier League as well. I just thought it was a really good all-round performance, and you can't take it away from Spurs that we did play well, even if it is against Everton. And I know I've been shut down on Twitter quite a bit since the game and different places I've been talking about it, but I'm over the moon. I'm ecstatic. We needed something like that, and that's probably been our best performance in, well, it sounds really bad, 6 or 7 months, to be honest, which is quite embarrassing, but it had to be done. So hopefully we build momentum on that and go again, because if not, it's all just for nothing.
Indeed. So, Billy, what do you make of what Callum said? And I'd also like to highlight a debut, something I was not expecting before I looked at the line, which was Wilson Odobert. How well do you think he done?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that Callum just said. It wasn't just a win, it was a win that made you feel really good about the season ahead. And hopefully going into 2 really tough games we've got coming up, it's a real big confidence boost. And I thought Odegaard did really well. And I think we desperately needed a winger that can take on a man and go outside a man and beat a man one-on-one, which we've been starved of, because the profile of our wingers, they just don't offer that for us. And it was really, really exciting to see that. And I think, we can beat Everton, and that's fine. But the manner of the performance was brilliant. And as Callum said, I do think it's probably our best performance in a good few months. And what really made me happy about it was, last season, I think it was Everton away. We conceded, I think, 2 set-piece goals, and we looked a lot more solid from set pieces this year, which is what the fans have been asking for over summer. That was our big Achilles heel next year. And obviously, the real test for that is going to be Arsenal in a couple of weeks, because they're probably the best set-piece side in the league. So, yeah, definitely really encouraging win, though, for sure.
Indeed. Barney, I'll come to you. Obviously, you're neutral in this perspective, Tottenham versus Everton. But what did you make of Spurs' performance? And do you think Spurs could maybe push for a Champions League spot this season, or is it too early to say?
It's too early to say. I mean, what Callum touched on, I think Son is a winger, though he did adapt to that forward role very well in Solanke's absence and took his goals brilliantly. Remains to be seen how many years left you can get out of him, maybe a year or 2, but he was my star of the show. Brilliant. I mean, brilliant goal by Suma. 3 great goals by Son and Romero, I rate really highly. I mean, I know, no disrespect to Everton, you want to be beating teams of Everton's, quality. They're going to be sort of lower Premier League, I think. If Spurs want a challenge for the top 4, then you have to sort of be laying down the kind of gauntlet, if that makes sense. You had to be sort of putting a statement out and getting these clean sheets, which also I was pleased for Vicario to get, because I rate him very highly. And sometimes I think he's not got as many clean sheets as he deserves, because I think he's a really great keeper, and sometimes the defence in front of him has let him down. I think many times, particularly last season, I noticed, because I watch Spurs quite a lot, obviously. So I've seen the kind of weaknesses there, just the way Ange plays. But, great win. Feel good if you're a Spurs fan, and onwards to Newcastle.
Indeed. Barney, I'll stick with you. Just talk a little bit about Everton, just because Everton is a club that always seems to be in the relegation zone, but always seem to rise above it. But obviously, they've started the season really poorly. Their fans welcomed them back. They didn't welcome them back because their fans were really getting on their backs when they came back to Liverpool on Sunday. This doesn't look good for Everton at all, does it?
Funny you say that. I actually said to Harry on one of the socials, I actually think that's a good thing. I mean, obviously you don't step over a line. That made that very clear. But I think every fan is entitled to have a little bit of kind of when a player isn't up to sort of, being the standards they're meant to be, you've got your paying customers, you're entitled to have a little vent as long as it's appropriate. And Everton, they're one of these clubs, they've been sort of there or thereabouts for years, and you think, are they going to drop this time? But they always just seem to sort of just get away with it and just find that second wind just when the season finishes. I think it'll be close again for them. Remains to be seen they've got a few tough runs, fixture batches coming up. I think they'll survive, though. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, true. Callum, do you think Everton might be able to just survive again this year?
It's such a difficult one. I mean, I was speaking to someone with links to Everton towards their board the other day, and this summer alone, they've had 2 failed takeovers. They've had people. They know they don't just owe 777 Group. They own the group. They owe 200 million in loans for a failed takeover to the guy who owns Roma as well. And it's such a shame because Everton, throughout me watching football, from everyone watching it since the 50s, 60s, all of that, they've always had such a bright history. And under, is it Farhad Mashiri who runs it now? He has drained every bit of aspect out of that club. And I don't feel that it's all necessary to blame on the pitch. It's a lot of it's to do with behind the scenes mismanagement of the club. And I feel that unless they get some sort of stability, I think Mashiri will make the wrong decision and sack Dyche by Christmas, and they'll be their own worst enemies. They will literally relegate themselves, and it's such a shame. But yeah, I think that there's more chance, unless they get some sort of takeover this year, I reckon they will go down.
Yeah, and Billy, we'll end this game off with you. So Everton in their first 2 games have scored 0 and conceded 7. For the way that Sean Dyche plays, very defensively minded manager, is this really concerning for them?
Yeah, definitely is. And I think at the moment, if you had to bet on any managers to be the first sacked this season, I think he'd be looking at your number 1 spot currently, because the fan pressure's building. They lost the first 2. They've got all kinds of transfer trouble as well. They don't know to be bringing in too many players in, and it's just not a very good atmosphere around the club. So yeah, I think it's worrying times for them. Calvert-Lewin is not, hasn't really had a look in yet. For a striker of his quality, you'd probably expect him to score 1 and 2. So he'd be getting disappointed that he hasn't scored yet this season. More will score in the next game. So yeah, again, as we said before with a couple of the other teams, I'd be really worried if I was an Everton fan right now, which is a shame because, as Callum mentioned, I got a real soft spot for Everton. I really like them. They have quite a few links with Tottenham. I think they're quite similar clubs in a lot of ways. So yeah, I feel really bad for them, and I think every year this seems to happen to them, doesn't it? They seem to hover around a relegation. Last season, obviously, that was a bit closer than it looked because of the point stock. But yeah, it's not been a great start at all. I think they'll be really worried.
Yeah, so we'll be moving on now to the 5:30 kickoff, which was Aston Villa 0, Arsenal 2. So Barney, we'll kick it off with you. Obviously, as we're Spurs fans, we're probably quite disappointed about this result, but we'll come to the neutral first to talk about it. So from an Arsenal perspective, this is the sort of win they need to be able to be in position to fight for the league, because obviously they dropped 6 points to Villa last season and they've already got 3 back. So if you were an Arsenal fan, would you be dreaming now, obviously, because you've already took 3 points off, which where you dropped last year?
If I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be thinking straight away, Aston Villa are our bogey side. So I'd approach the game with a bit of caution. But they were clinical. They were really good. David Raya made a brilliant save against Watkins in the second half, if I recall. It's kind of those moments that change games. Arsenal went about it professionally, and you can tell even at this stage early on they do have title credentials. And you Spurs fans will like hearing this, but they're one of my favourites. Them and Man City to sort of be battling it out. Aston Villa, they're a good side. They can match anyone on their day. I still think they'll be about 7th, 8th next season, but there's a lot of quality teams up there, and they have to sort of be at the top of their game to sort of challenge, if you like. But no, Arsenal will feel very pleased. I mean, good goal by Trossard, and wrapped up nicely. Another assist from Saka, if I recall, it was a good one. So yeah, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be very, very happy.
Yeah, surely you would. I mean, I would if I was an Arsenal fan, but thank God I'm not. Callum, we'll be moving on to you. So obviously, as a Spurs fan, we're looking at this. We're not very happy about this, obviously, because we think is it Arsenal's year? Hopefully not, right?
They've been saying that for God knows how many years now, haven't they? What is it? I think I saw on eBay that nice tunnel and the parade float and all that stuff, and they were trying to trade it for a time machine, so it was wonderful. But no, I think Arsenal are probably like Liverpool and City now. They are getting to that stage where each year it's just a small improvement. You don't have to buy 20 players; they buy 2 to 3 in key positions now. So I mean, my little brother's an Arsenal fan, so it is a very split household how we live. But it's one of them where, yeah, I have to appreciate they are a good team. Lego Head has done well with them. He has got them playing good football. He just has that aspect about him. And when Arsenal are playing well, they are doing good stuff. But I still think that City are just another entity in themselves, and I think Arsenal do lack a proper striker because Havertz is not there, and yeah, they do get goals from other aspects, but it's one of them where they have beaten Villa. Villa are meant to be one of the most watched teams this year, and people are saying that they could have a good season, but from what I've seen from Villa the last 2 games, they're I don't know. They look poor. They really look pants. And Arsenal made them look like, say, a relegation candidate, to be honest, because apart from maybe 2 good attempts, Villa didn't really do anything for them. And I think the players they have lost this year may make them suffer. And when they do come up against teams like the top 6, they will probably have a lot more difficulty than they did last year when people were still trying to work out what style of play they was going for.
Yeah. So, Billy, I'll come to you. I'll save you from talking about Arsenal, and we'll move on to Aston Villa, a team that was obviously that beat us to Champions League football last season. They've got it this season. Do you think that they will be able to fight again for Champions League football, or do you think UCL football, when it hits for them, might sink them a little bit?
Yeah, I don't. I haven't been encouraged by their opening games. I thought they don't look as good as they did last season. I think, and I think when you're in the Champions League, you go from having 1 game a week, 2 games a week, and 2 games which you have to prioritize as well. So it's not just like a Europa League where you can kind of field some youngsters in them. You got 2 games where you got to play your first team, and that can be really, really difficult to balance at first. And we've seen loads of times teams that are not used to being in the Champions League for a long time struggle with that, as Newcastle did last season. So yeah, I think they'll. Yeah, I'm not sure that they're going to finish in the top 4 again this season. And I think Douglas Luiz is going to be a big loss for them as well. I think he's a brilliant player. I think Onana is a good sign-in for sure, and someone that I would have definitely taken at Tottenham. But I just worry that I don't think he's going to offer as much as Douglas Luiz did in terms of going forward. So I think there'll be a big loss to them. And to be honest, I hope they don't have a great season because they're one of our direct rivals for the top 4 place. So I'd be delighted if they have a poor season, to be honest.
Yeah, as a Spurs fan, obviously, if we were trying to aim for top 4, Aston Villa would probably be one of the teams that will try to stop us. But we'll be moving on to Callum.
It's really strange as well from Villa because both of the players that they've got for the deal for Douglas Luiz, they've shipped them both out. Berantaxia and Illing Jr. have both gone on loan. I know they're young players, but they're good players and all that. I don't understand the thinking behind it. So something there at Villa doesn't seem quite right. Their squad doesn't look right, like Billy said, to go on all fronts. So it is a difficult one to say the least where we stand. And I think these last 2 games have proved it, to be honest, mate.
Indeed. So let's move on to the first game that happened on Sunday, which was Bournemouth 1, Newcastle 1. So looking at the side of it, Bournemouth had a pretty positive display, but it ended up in a draw with VAR controversy coming in, obviously with a handball, which, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't think was a handball. But moving on, Barney, do you think that was a handball, and should Bournemouth fans be a bit disappointed?
If I was a Bournemouth fan, I'd be disappointed. I don't think that was a handball. But, VAR was brought in to, obviously, we can have a conversation about this all day, assist with the game. It's going to make right decisions. It's going to make wrong decisions. Going back to our game, it made the correct decision, awarding the goal to Leicester. So I couldn't complain about that. But if I was a Bournemouth fan going back to this game, yeah, I'd be aggrieved because Bournemouth, I think, are a solid side. They've done their business well since they won promotion with us back in 2022, and I think they'll be there or thereabouts. They'll be fine this season, if you were to ask me. I think they will look on that probably as a chance missed. I think they could have actually won that game on another day. Newcastle might say the same. Just it's early season, bedding in, teams sussing each other out. I don't think Newcastle are going to finish in the European places, probably 8th, 7th, 8th. I think there's too much quality at the top there. I think they'll just miss out, and I think Bournemouth will just be fine.
Yeah, Billy, we'll be moving over to you because there's a comment here I'd like to bring up saying, how did Joe Linton not get sent off? If we play that Newcastle team, so we can run over them. If you saw the clip, of those who didn't, Joe Linton went on the goalkeeper and completely I don't know what happened. He just wrapped his arms around him and pulled him to the ground. Billy, do you think that's a red card?
Yeah, to be honest, it's one of the worst decisions I've seen for a while. It's as clear a red card as you can ever get. He's literally grabbed him around the neck and taken him down. I can't believe I can't believe that's happened. Especially in the era of VAR where everything's checked and checked and checked again. It's an all-day red card, and I'm amazed that it wasn't given. And I'd be fuming if I was a Bournemouth fan. I'd be fuming as a Tottenham fan, seeing as he'll probably go and score against us on Sunday now. No, not that. But yeah, it's a horrific decision, whichever way you look at it. And I don't know. They seem to say at the beginning of the season they were going to come out and talk about things on Twitter and defend their decisions, but I haven't seen any rationalization of that call. Maybe they have. I haven't seen it, but I can't see any other decision than that being a red card. I'm completely baffled by it, to be honest.
Callum, are you in agreement with Billy that should have been a red card?
Yeah, I mean, if it was Romero, literally, we know he'd have been sent off for it. There was enough challenges last year where people were calling for it. So, yeah, I think it's more inconsistency with refereeing, VAR. I don't know where they get their playbook from. Maybe WWE wrestling, something like that. They'll do by definition of what classes as a headlock and what classes as just a little tap on the shoulder. But nah, it's a poor decision, and ultimately, it probably would have meant that Bournemouth did win it, which they probably deserved because Newcastle were pants as well that day. To be honest, they were crap.
Yeah, so we'll move on now to the next 2 p.m. kickoff happened on Sunday, which was one that I wasn't very too happy about. Wolves 2, Chelsea 6. One that I was definitely not expecting. So, Billy, I'll kick it off with you. 6 goals for Chelsea, a team that I was probably, because obviously what's going on behind the scenes, to put 6 past Wolves is pretty crazy. So at least I thought so.
Yeah, and the first half was crazy. It was like a 2-2 at halftime, I think, and every time Chelsea scored, Wolves seemed to equalise. And I thought it was going to be that kind of game, but then in the second half, obviously there was a lot of chat about Madueke before the game because he commented on Instagram, and then he came on and scored a hat trick. But that Cole Palmer goal was unbelievable. That was an unbelievable goal. Certainly, I won't see many better goals this season. And there was, it's the funny how the nature of Twitter is and the nature of football fans. After he had a pretty quiet opening game, everyone's like, "Oh, it's Cole Palmer second season syndrome," and now he's already got 4 goals and assists in 2 games. So I think he's going to have a really great season again. Obviously, he's a nailed on FPL player for sure. He's started where he left off last season, really. Yeah, 6 goals was crazy. And I thought, especially after the first half went end to end, they just ran away with it in the second half, which is worrying because, as Spurs fans, and I think in general football fans, I don't think anyone really wants to see Chelsea do well because of the way that they've just been absolutely careless of money and transfers, the way they've treated some of their players, some of their academy players, some of their players that have been there for like 16 or so years. It's disgusting, really. So the last thing I want to see as a football fan, and especially as a Tottenham fan, is Chelsea do well. But yeah, the signs are there in this game that they maybe are starting to turn things around after a really poor season last season.
Yeah, indeed. Callum, are you agreeing with Billy as well? And do you think Chelsea may be going a little bit under the radar? Can they have a good season?
Well, they're definitely not. Well, they're going under the radar, maybe in terms of league position. They're definitely not going under the radar for PR purposes for how it's going. I mean, he's just done a press conference tonight and literally just said, if you're not playing, you're training on your own, you're not getting minutes, get lost, sort of thing. But no, it's one of them where Chelsea, they'll probably have some freak results as they did last year. They'll come out with something like this with a 6-2. I reckon there's still a lot to go with them, and they'll probably be found out very quickly, to be honest, because they even with them winning 6-2, I weren't convinced. They was all right going forward, but they still looked very susceptible at the back. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on Chelsea. And there was just something that Matt Kushner said in the comments as well about letting Madueke go from letting him go from our academy.
Yeah, it's gone.
We didn't let him go. He wanted to go. He chose to go to PSV, and this is what everyone has been saying this week. How did Spurs let him go? Why didn't we play him? All of that stuff. He wanted to go. We offered him professional terms. He didn't want to be patient. He wanted to take that next step. He saw Jadon Sancho, Bellingham, people like that doing it, and it was on his own volition. That's it. You can't force a player to stay at a club if they don't want to when they're a youngster. And yeah, he went, but he wasn't that good at PSV. I still don't rate him in the Premier League, to be honest. I mean, when you look at his goals, it's like, I think that's 7 in about 50 Premier League games now. He's nothing special. It's not a great return, and people are blowing smoke up his backside for no reason. It's obviously just my opinion, but I don't think he's anything special, and I don't think he's even pushing towards the England squad compared to someone like Palmer.
Okay, yeah. So Barney, I want to get your thoughts on this game as obviously Chelsea and Fulham, they're rivals. I mean, let's not put away from you are kind of direct rivals with them. Are you a little bit worried about Chelsea? Because everyone was always talking about what's going on behind the scenes, but the players they got in their squad and the manager, can they have a better season than everyone's predicting?
Yeah, it's a weird one with Chelsea. I mean, they bought so many players. I find it really hard to actually pick a starting 11. I mean, they have their standouts. Obviously, Cole Palmer he's going to walk into any team, isn't he? Saying this as a Fulham fan, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I love him to bits. I mean, he's just a brilliant player. I've not seen many games like this. Almost a little bit of a freak result, really. But Chelsea will get great confidence from that. I mean, of all things that have been going on behind the scenes with them, in the season, it's well documented, and they let their football do the talking. That's what we're here to talk about, the football, and they won convincingly. Wolves might be a little bit shell shocked about that. I know I would be, but I wouldn't. If I was a Wolves fan, I wouldn't be saying, your season's not defined on this result. It's a long season. Yeah, it's not great to start off, your first home game with a 6-2 defeat, but Chelsea will be flying. I'll be really happy with that. I mean, Cole Palmer, some great goals. Great for my FPL as well.
Yeah, it was a lot of people's FPLs. Wasn't in mine though, unfortunately. But let's move on to the 4:30 kickoff, which was Liverpool 2, Brentford 0. Not a big shock, considering the golfing probably scored quality between the two sides. So Callum, I'll come to you. How we knew this result was probably going to happen as well, didn't we? But do you think
Yeah.
Liverpool can maybe be up there to title challenge under Arne Slot, or is it a bit too soon to say that?
Too soon, to be honest, mate, because I think there's still a lot of gaps in that Liverpool squad. They are probably more ready-made for a title challenge. Klopp has left a good stocked first team for them, but I think that it's been one of them where they've sold a lot of good youngsters, or they're letting them go out. So, I mean, as people have put it, Klopp's kids that he had around about the squad don't seem to have taken well with Arne Slot and all that. I mean, the fact that he sold Sepp Vandenberg, who was, you think, Dutch manager, Dutch defender, match made in heaven. It's literally, and he's just gone, no. Quansah hauled off in the first game. He's gone with what kind of works, Canate and Van Dijk. Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, probably Liverpool have got something about them where they can push on and go and do stuff, but they do have Champions League, which they've done pretty poor in the last couple of years as well. On the flip side, when you look at Brentford are just they're a good club. They'll generate players. They'll get good stats. They'll have good things from their data-led approach. But when you've got the overhanging issue of Tony, and it's will he F off or will he not sort of thing. It's one of them where you just kind of think, look, just get him out of the club. He's a toxic influence. He's taking all the sort of limelight from what Brentford have achieved over the last couple of years, with him just being
an idiot. And I feel that that's taken a lot of sort of people's views off of the pitch. It's making Brentford look a weaker unit because they're going, well, that person can't do what Tony does. That person can't do what Tony does. Oh, that person doesn't do what Tony does. I mean, I love Keane Lewis Potter. I love Damsgaard. I think they've got really, really good players at Brentford. I just don't think that they're quite all there when you get them going against a team like Liverpool. But I'm not that convinced by Liverpool yet either. I don't think they've looked that great. It looks like they're playing Conte ball. They look like they're playing counter-attacking football. They was dire against Ipswich last week for nearly 70 minutes, and they weren't that great against Brentford either. One of my mates is a Liverpool fan, and he's blowing smoke out their backsides like there's no tomorrow. So I need to shut him up for a bit, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, Barney, are you in agreement with Callum? Is it too soon for Liverpool to think about a title challenge? And on the flip side, have Brentford got enough to stay in the Premier League for another season?
I fully agree with everything you say, Callum. I think Brentford will be okay, but I think we'll start with Brentford. I think it's unhelpful sort of distractions. Everyone's talking about Tony and this kind of stuff. When we're sort of ignoring what Brentford are actually doing on the pitch, it just seems to have that kind of aura about it. I mean, they're a good side and they'll certainly be fine this season. I just think that whole saga needs to be sorted one way or the other. It was a relatively routine win for Liverpool. New managers, second win on the bounce, so he'll be happy with that. Going to Brentford, it's a tricky one. I mean, I think is it too soon? Yeah, it is too soon to sort of talk about Liverpool in terms of European challenges. I think they sort of need to sort of bed in a bit, get new manager used to things. But they'll certainly be there or thereabouts. I think Brentford will certainly be okay this season, but just going back to them, need to sort out their stuff off the pitch. I think is a distraction.
Yeah, indeed. So that wraps us up nicely for the games that have just happened. But in match week 2, but we're going to move on nicely to match week 3 and previewing some of these fixtures. So we're going to dive straight in. Arsenal versus Brighton at the Emirates Stadium. Barney, coming straight back to you. Two teams that are sitting on 6 points after the first 2 games. Is it going to be a game that will be a really good contest, or do you think maybe Arsenal could be running away with it? And what are your score predictions?
I don't think they'll be running away with it. I think two teams who are on good form, both of them going into it. I think it'd be certainly an entertaining game, but I think Arsenal will probably have a little bit too much in terms of quality going forward. So I'll be going for Arsenal 2, Brighton 1.
Callum, are you in agreement with that? What are your score predictions for this game?
Yeah, I reckon Arsenal probably just got a little bit more about them, to be honest. But I do like Brighton. I like their manager. I mean, he's 31. He's got something about him. He's got that. He's got something like what Glasner had last year. So yeah, but I would say that probably Arsenal. I'm going to go 3-1, probably to Arsenal, to be honest. And I hate to say it.
Yeah, that's a fair prediction. I'll probably also go for a 2-1, as Barney said, to Arsenal. I think it will be an entertaining game to start off that Premier League week. And I think there's 2 really good sides going at it. And let's move on to the first of the 3 p.m. kickoffs, being Brentford at home versus Southampton. When you look at this, Southampton have got 0 points. Barney, after this game, will they still have 0 points?
It's going to get pressured for Southampton. It's not getting any easier. Brentford being at home will want to sort of, put a statement down. They'll be looking at Southampton thinking, yes, we need 3 points against them to sort of, match our own credentials here. Southampton obviously will want to sort of prove a point. They're not in the Premier League to make up numbers. But I just think Brentford will have a bit too much for them. So I'm going for 2-0 Brentford.
Callum, what are your score predictions? And do you think Southampton will be looking again at 0 points after match week 3?
Yeah, I reckon so. It's going to be a difficult one for Russell Martin down there. I think that they'll struggle to start getting points until probably about October time, and maybe the damage will be done. So yeah, I'm going to go, I reckon 2-1 Brentford.
Yeah, I personally think it'll be 3-0 Brentford, and I just think Brentford will have too much at home against Southampton. Well, we'll now be moving on to a team that Tottenham played last week, and they're at home. It's Everton versus Bournemouth. Callum, we'll stay with you. Is it going to be more doom and gloom for Everton? And can Everton mount a bit of a fight back to start off match week 3?
They always seem to play a little bit better at Goodison, not by much. I mean, you got to raise the bar better compared to how their performance was against us. But I like Bournemouth. I think they're a good team. They actually have something about them. And yeah, I reckon Evan Nilsson could do all right against them, because realistically, Everton could have as many as 15 or 16 players probably out injured or suspended by this weekend. You never know how the dominoes fall with them. So yeah, I'm gonna go 3-1 Bournemouth.
Barney, do you think firstly, do you think Evan Nilsson will get a hat trick? But secondly, will Everton maybe get their first points on the board this season?
I think he'll score, but as Callum says, I like Bournemouth as well. I really do. And Everton just seem to be in a funny place at the moment, and Bournemouth will look at this game and think this is a chance to get 3 points here. So yeah, I agree with Callum. Not the same score, but I think 2-1.
2-1, okay, that's a fair result. And Barney, I will stick with you because the next game is Ipswich versus Fulham. Your second away day of the season against newly promoted Ipswich, coming off 3 points against another newly promoted team in Leicester. Can you do it back to back? Can you take 3 points off Ipswich away?
Usually I'm quite sort of conservative when it comes to my own team's predictions. I don't want to tempt fate, but funny enough, I'm actually really, really confident here. Having seen our new signings last night, and they'll be featuring against Ipswich, we just look a really strong unit. And if we cut out the mistakes and don't do a Fulham, which is what we sometimes do, make it hard for ourselves and we take our chances, I'm going for a 2-1 Fulham win.
2-1 Fulham. Callum, are you in agreement with Barney that Fulham will be on 6 points after this game?
I'm going for 10-1 to Ipswich, just because I know it'll make Barney cry if it happens. I reckon Fulham have got too much about them, and Ipswich are going to be all over the place, to be honest. So I'm going to I reckon they'll score. I reckon Smodic or maybe Delap might get one. So I'm probably going to go 3-2 Fulham.
Yeah, I definitely think Fulham will win, and I think it'll be 2-0 Fulham for me. Another good performance from Marco Silva's men. I definitely think Fulham will be up there this season. And I think will be teams like Ipswich that they'll be able to do 6 points over them. And I think that's what enable them to maybe push on this season. Let's move on to Leicester versus Aston Villa. Callum, I'll be coming back to you. Well, do we think this is going to be on paper as easy as it sounds? And will Aston Villa get the 3 points?
Yeah, I reckon so. I think Villa have just got something about them where they'll pull out a freak result, and they'll probably do exactly what Spurs can't do. They'll probably pull out a 2-1 win after being 1-0 up, going level, and then they'll get that late winner, which we definitely won't. So yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 Villa, and Leicester will just continue being crap.
Maybe. Barney, what do you think? Will Leicester get their first win of the season, or is that, as I've said, too easy for Aston Villa, and will they get the 3 points?
See, it's a tricky one. This might sound a bit bold, but as much as we dominated them in the previous game, you always think it's going to click at some time. They're going to get a result sooner or later. And yeah, they are a newly promoted side, and Villa are good as well. But I don't know. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Fair enough, 1-1. It is pretty bold. I would have said Aston Villa to probably get the 3 points. But let's move on to another 3 p.m. or the last 3 p.m. kickoff in Nottingham Forest versus Wolves. This could be a tasty game. This really could be. Callum, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I reckon you're right. It's definitely got an aspect about it. I think both teams can score goals if they're on their days. So I'm thinking a draw here. I'm probably because both teams can't defend to save their lives, to be honest. So I'm gonna go 2-2, I reckon.
Barney, are you in agreement 2-2 or is it going to be a draw? But this definitely has the potential to be a really good game.
This has a potential actually to be a definite game that I marked for match of the day. It just has the potential to be a Premier League classic. I think both sides will score. I think probably more than one. Callum, it's a good prediction that 2-2, but I'm going to go Forest 3-2.
Ooh.
3-2 to Forest at home. That is definitely your prediction. I'll probably say 2-1 to Wolves, actually. I'm going to give it to Wolves. I think they're going to click on. And I think this is probably going to be against what other people think, but Wolves are on 0 points. And I think eventually they're going to get a win. I think it will be on Saturday. And let's move on to the last Saturday game, being West Ham versus Man City. Barney, I will stay with you. Hopefully, as a Spurs fan, or at least for me, will Man City win?
They'll win. I think they'll win. I mean, unless West Ham pull off a complete miracle and keep Haaland at bay, I think this has got all the hallmarks of a 2 or 3-0 win Man City on it. So I'm going for 3-0.
Callum, are you in agreement that it will be too easy for Man City?
Yeah, I reckon City will bowl them over, to be honest. I'm hoping for it as well. So I'm going to go. I think West Ham will score from a dodgy set piece or just a breakaway goal when City probably have that one lapse in concentration. So I'd say 3-1 Man City.
I'm going to go for a 4-0 Man City, because let's hope so. And let's move on to the first Sunday game. Chelsea coming off a 6-2 win against Palace, who haven't registered a point yet. Barney, Chelsea at home. Are Chelsea going to win, or will Palace get their first points?
London derby, always feisty. Chelsea are on a complete high after that Wolves win. Palace sometimes have that ability to get that result, having seen quite a few Fulham Palace games over the years. They are capable of getting something this game, but I think Chelsea they'll be on a high. Cole Palmer, I think, will probably score 1 or 2. So I'm going for a 3-1 Chelsea win.
Callum, what are your thoughts? Do you think Chelsea will win?
I would rather Palace win. Let's put it that way. I will never wish anything good on Chelsea in my whole entire life. I reckon that, like Barney said, it's a London derby. Anything can happen, to be honest. I mean, we've seen freak results where it shouldn't happen. I mean, Chelsea could literally rock up with the 21 players they've got in isolation at the moment, away from the first team. You just don't know what's going to happen before this game. So I reckon Palace could nick it 2-1, probably Eze and Mateta getting a nice free kick and a headed goal, something like that.
Yeah, very much could do, but I do think this will be a stalemate, and I think it will end up being 2-2. And now let's move on to a game that me and Callum have probably got a lot vested in, being Newcastle versus Tottenham. Obviously, our form at St James's Park is pretty horrific. And so, Callum, what do you think? Do we finally get a win at St James's?
I would love it. I reckon that if we do get a win, we ain't keeping a clean sheet like against Everton. We will make it difficult for ourselves. We will make it look like Everton or not Everton, Newcastle are much better than a team that can't even buy players at the moment for failure to get a points deduction or anything like that. So I'd say probably, I don't know, I'd probably say 3-2 Spurs, and that's a hope. It's going to be a high-scoring game because we know both teams can score goals. We probably just can't defend either of us, to be honest.
Yeah, Barney, what do you think? Because there's a comment here saying we've conceded about 10 goals in the last 2 games there, probably, because I think we actually have. Is it a game where Spurs will probably end up losing because our form there is very bad?
Yeah, your form there is bad. Again, as Cam said, I can't see you keeping a clean sheet there. But then I can't see Newcastle as well. Spurs have been scoring a lot of goals lately. So actually, yeah, I was thinking about this actually earlier. So I'm going for a 2-2.
2-2, yeah, I'll probably join you in that being 2-2. I feel like it will be a very even matched game, and I think Newcastle will probably nick it off us right at the end, which I'm not happy to admit, but I think it will be like that.
Would you take a 2-2 draw, Lewis? Would you take that, or would you be pissed?
No, I'll take that. I think I would. I mean, we every year it goes there, it seems like we're losing. So even to get a draw, I think still an improvement.
Yeah, true. It's only been the last 2 years though that we've been pants, because we actually had some decent results there a couple of years before, apart from that 5-1 when last game of the season in the 2-horse race, Arsenal came ahead of us
Yeah,
after
I
losing
remember.
5-1.
That's not good. But let's move on now to the last game of the match week, but a very, very tasty one in that Manchester United versus Liverpool at Old Trafford. Super Sunday, 3:30 p.m. kickoff. It's going to have all the everyone's going to be zoomed in on this game. Barney, coming back to you, it's going to be a really good encounter, isn't it? And what are your score predictions?
I do love the Man United Liverpool games. It's always been one I've kept out in the Premier League since I was a kid. It's always been a standout for me. It'll be a feisty game, definitely. Play a few bookings, fast paced, good atmosphere. I think Manchester United being at home, obviously, I always try and trend it back the home team. And in this case, definitely here. So I think it'll be a tight game. I can't see too many goals. I think it'll be a bit cagey. So I'm going for a 1-0 Man United win.
Callum, are you in agreement that United will win, or do you think Liverpool will just? They always seem to do United at Old Trafford recently. Do you think Liverpool will get a win?
This is one of the only times I'll ever support Liverpool, but I hope Liverpool kill them, because after United won that poxy Fulham game, no offense, Barney, they thought they was
Trust me, yeah.
they thought they were the best thing since sliced bread. They was going, Xerxes the best thing since Van Nistelrooy, and Euro's going to be world class. Fernandez is back. All of that. They are just delusional fans. You literally held on to your manager because no one else wanted the job. That's the only reason you did it. So I think that you guys are probably right. That it'll probably be a very tight game, but I hope Liverpool win like 3-0 just to take them down a level, because I know they'll be seething for about 6 months to a year afterwards on it.
Indeed. Do you think that if United were to go and lose this game, do you think that they're going to start jumping on the back of Erik ten Hag?
I would probably say the fans will. The club won't, because they've put their neck out on the line, giving him that that contract, i.e., extension. I know it's not an extension; they've just given him taken up the option of the extra year, but they've put their neck out on the line. So I reckon the club will stand by him. But based on the money that they've spent, I mean, what is it, nearly 150, 160 million on Euro, Xerxes, Ugarte, if they get him as well, people like that. I mean, it'll be one of them where, yeah, all the United fans will be in uproar. Then they'll win a game. They'll be quiet for a couple of weeks. Then they'll be back. They're the most fractured fan base going. So I think nothing that United will do will please them, to be honest, unless they brought back Fergie.
Yeah, maybe. Barney, are you in agreement that the fans aren't really very reactionary fans as well? And do you think that if a game like this, where United are at home, if they do end up losing, do you think the fans will be jumping on Erik ten Hag's back?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, when against Old Trafford last year, there was complete meltdowns. I mean, it doesn't take much to sort of make them sort of throw their toys out the pram. So yeah, he will be under pressure pretty much in any game they lose. It's just the nature of the beast, isn't it, with football fans? I think, we're all guilty of probably reacting certain fan bases more than others. So yeah, you know what I mean by that. But he's under pressure. I think it's one of those jobs where managers always going to be under pressure unless you're sort of up there on cloud 10, winning everything and winning world title. You know what I mean? It's a tough job. So he can't escape from it. But I think Manchester United do need to win. Otherwise, yeah, there'll be a few people on social media having hissy fits.
There certainly will be. So I think that wraps us up nicely for today's show. Callum, thank you very much for joining. A very late edition, but I'm very happy you joined. Where can people find you on social media?
No, thanks for having me on, Lewis. Obviously, Harry did text me late, so luckily I was able to jump on. But no, you can find me on Twitter at CallumStubbs97. I am usually on Park Lane Podcast. I am taking a break from it because I've got some weekends planned, so I will not be about for a bit. But no, obviously follow all the guys on the pod and follow Harry and go and pester him as well. go and pester him, just annoy him. It'd be brilliant.
Barney, thank you very much for joining on. That's great to have a chat with you as well. I would also like to talk to you about your collaboration with Harry and how did it start, and just tell people watching a bit more about what you guys do together.
Well, basically, me and Harry have known each other for 2 years now. So we started following each other on X then. And we sort of started talking, and it became very apparent very quickly. We both had the same kind of ambitions to help people with autism. I mean, it was pretty much in the first day we both knew we were autistic, each of us. And it sort of went from there, and we sort of started talking about plans to do, and we got Fulham involved, who were very on board with it. I know a person at Fulham who arranged a lot of things to feature us on their social media, go to Craven Cottage, go in the Matchday programme for the Fulham Spurs game last season, went to the sensory room, and we just want to make a difference, Lewis, to be honest, just help people with autism, get out there, spread good word, and just to tell people, you're not alone. We're on challenge the status quo.
Indeed. I would also like to ask how like what's been the reaction to your collaboration, and has there been a lot of people supporting you and what you've been doing?
9 times out of 10 it's positive. You get a lot of people who might say, oh, there's a bit of an age gap there, why are you doing that? But it's been very rare. 9 times out of 10 it's been positive. Both mine and Harry's families are 100% behind us. I actually met all of Harry's family last week when we were on holiday, and it's really good. They're fully behind us. My work's behind us. Everyone knows what we do. I was stopped in Fulham last week just randomly. Someone said, oh, you and Barney, you and Harry, you do that autism stuff. And it's just little things like that are nice. And I told Harry that, and we're out there. I said, my dad said to me last week, he said, you've done the hard work now. It's about what you do from here.
Indeed. And just before we end, where can people find you throughout social media?
Right, yes. So I'm on X, Ambrose Barnaby, Twitter, and obviously you can find me there. And thank you, Lewis. It's been lovely talking to you, and you're a great host. And thank you, Harry, for inviting me onto your brilliant channel. Everyone subscribe to the channel, by the way. But really, thank you very much.
Thank you too for coming on. It's been brilliant to talk about the Premier League with you. So that wraps us nicely for today. And everyone, thank you very much for watching, and a massive up the Spurs.
This is an older song from us that really caught on. It's been sung by many fans at various different grounds. So really appreciate support on this one. Quite simply, it's about a guy who's ginger. He came from Juventus and he plays on the wing.
There's not a soul out there, no one to hear my prayers. Give me a ginger from Sweden. He came from Juventus and he plays on the wing. Give me a ginger from Sweden. Number 21, his name is Kulusevski. Da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Give me ginger from Sweden. He came from Juventus and he plays on the wing. Give me ginger from Sweden. Number 21, his name is Kulusevski. Da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Thank you.